here today is to introduce Kim Lund, Managing Principal, Process and Productivity at RBA. She'll be presenting on building a professional modern intranet using SharePoint hubs in Viva. She comes to us with over 20 years of experience in the technology space, helping our clients over the years. She has a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, Computer Science, and Education from Winona State University. Kim really excels at bridging the gap at customers between business and technology groups, and being able to do that in a very a good way for our customers. As I mentioned, she is a managing principal currently, helping to lead our process and productivity business unit, where we focus on M365 and Power Platform. But prior to that, she's held many roles: Microsoft Solution or M365 Solution Lead, Information Architect, Business Analyst, Technical Trainer, and User Adoption Lead. She's helped many customers analyze and understand the workflows within their own business. And then she's able to assist those customers and establish goals and create plans to implement those goals with modern workplace solutions in M365. I think you'll get a sense for some of those concepts that she uses when she presents today. I welcome Kim Lund to present Building a Professional Modern Intranet using SharePoint Hubs in Viva. Kim?
Well, thank you very much, Kyle, and thank you, Michelle, and for asking, and Don for asking me to speak today. I'm sharing my screen now. Can everyone see my screen? I'm thinking you must be able to.
Yeah, looks great.
Perfect. Well, I wanted to say, since I won't have to introduce myself, Kyle did a great job, but I did want to say I feel very fortunate that I blew our average out of the water. I've been at RBA as a consultant for 13 years, so I helped that average increase. I was a little surprised it's not increased even more. So,
awesome. But I think we did lose your share though, if you're sharing.
I will try again. Let's see. Oh, I must have been removed as presenter because I don't have the option to share anymore.
Are you coming in? Okay, as external. Okay. Yep, I am playing with the settings to hopefully get us to not have issues with the mute. So you are going to be set just fine.
Okay. There we go. I see the share back again. So let me try this again. Perfect. So the only thing I wanted to say as you were introducing some of the things coming up, when you mentioned Copilot, I was worried that everyone was going to leave this topic on intranets and want to hear more about Copilot, but that will come in a future meeting, it sounds like. But let's go ahead and talk about intranets. I have been, as Kyle mentioned, in the Modern Workplace team with the Process and Productivity team. I've done a lot of intranets over the years. And when I get brought in to help a company with an intranet build, I often hear things like this, that their intranet has become a dumping ground, or there's nothing on the intranet of value, or it's very unappealing. It's just a bunch of texts and a bunch of lists, very just outdated. It's hard to find things. It's not relevant. So if you hear things like that at your place, go ahead and do a reaction, because I know I hear that often. And so one of the things I really then, as I talk with my clients, is that, okay, what do you want? What do you need? And again, on the flip side, the things that they want is an engaging intranet that's fresh, that changes often, that's maybe even personalized. That obviously is relevant, is a good source of relevant news and information, has better search, and is visually appealing. So if that sounds like your workplace, or you are not alone. So with that, hopefully, if you are engaging in a intranet project or looking to refresh your own company's intranet, you'll be able to have your employees come away after a new intranet project and say things like, our intranet is the gateway to my company. It's where I go to view practical information and current news. It's where I can get and ask for feedback, and it helps me receive important knowledge and receive daily help and guidance. Because really, at the end of the day, those are all things that most companies hope their intranet does for them. So hopefully you're not completely discouraged, and that you feel like there is hope for your intranet, because with some of the new improvements that we have been seeing, and this has been a gradual improvement, but the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to try to get us back on track. I'll try to keep my section to about 45 minutes. In the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to hit on a lot of these things. Microsoft has gradually been delivering improved functionality and features throughout SharePoint and really the M365 ecosystem to allow companies to get your intranets, many of those pain points that I discussed just a moment ago, fixed by using things like hubs, and I'll be talking about that. Integrating your intranet into Teams using Viva connections, integrating social features, whether it be YAM or whether it be likes and dislikes and commenting, being able to have a new and improved, better search that can work across your ecosystem, not just siloed search results. We'll be looking at ways you can make your intranet look better and get built more quickly using out-of-the-box templates or building your own so that you can have starting points that get you to what you need faster. And then branding options so that you can have consistent colors and themes and fonts that don't make everybody disjointed. So we'll look at some of those options, as well as modern page layouts. Remember the old SharePoint pages where you were kind of locked in, almost like, with very rigid page structures. Now you can easily have, different layouts, three zones, 2 zones, a right rail, a top wider rail. It just allows so much flexibility. And then we'll hit on a little bit of all of the navigation. I remember one of the first development projects years ago was to make a better custom navigation. We don't need to do that anymore. We can have out-of-the-box, multi-tiered out-of-the-box navigational components. So we'll hit on all of these or most of these over the next 45 minutes. So let me begin by talking about, first, I feel remiss by not really hitting on some of this. Typically, this would be the kind of things I talk through with the clients when I take on an intranet project. So I'm going to just kind of go through this very quickly. But when you're taking on an intranet project, don't skimp on the planning. Too often, you're so excited and you just want to start creating things. But I really recommend that you actually create a vision statement and have business cases for what you want to achieve with your intranet. So that way you can measure it. That way you can hold that up as it's governed to say, this is what our intranet's for. And really weed out the noise that can easily creep in as you begin to build. Also, user experience design. I mentioned there's some great ways with templates and branding to make things look better, but there still is a lot of merit in having a focus on user experience, focus on personas, understand your audience so that you're able to, again, build an intranet that's going to meet the needs of your users. Also, look at your taxonomy and your structure. Better findability, better searchability is all going to be better off with a foundation that you've thought through and you've structured. And also look at how you want to measure success. Are there metrics you want to be looking at month in and month out? Is there quotas? How are you going to measure that success so that you can actually be seeing that the dollars spent on building the intranet are receiving the benefits? And another one that a lot of times gets maybe discussed early on and then left behind without proper planning and having a governance team. But don't skimp on the governance. Think of just how important it is to know who's in charge, what's in charge, how you're going to manage your structures and your sites so that you don't end up with the dumping ground that we talked about. And last but not least, learn from what's working and learn from what's not working. Build upon what's working and leave behind maybe what's not working, or look at how to improve it. Okay, so with that, let's jump in. Let's look at, like I mentioned, I'm going to talk through from many of the improvements that we've seen gradually over time. And one of the ones that I think sometimes gets overlooked is the advantages of using hub sites. Those of you who've been around in SharePoint for a while, we used to have to build out and sometimes deep site collection structures in order to show those relationships. We really don't have to do that anymore. We can use what's called a hub. Hub site allows you to define things like common navigation, common branding, and structures that then is inherited by the sites that choose to subscribe to the hub. It also allows for news and content and and search results to be connected by that hub, if that is a desire, so that you can have topics of content that are related show up as if they're a unit. So hub sites give you a lot of advantage and very easy to implement. I'm going to do a demo here in just a moment. It shows you how easy it is to work with hubs. Also, when considering hubs, a couple of key points that I advise clients on is that you really want to think about how your users get their work done, and consider you don't have to have just one hub. You can have multiple hubs. So you can actually think through, how are your employees, what are the things they need to do to get their job done? So for instance, if you have a sales team, you could have a sales hub and then maybe regional sites where the region teams work closely together, but yet connected through kind of a global sales hub, so that they can have shared tools and templates and content, very easy to kind of interact with, but yet they've still got their own space, because maybe weekly they're collaborating, they're having team meetings, they're doing things in maybe a regional level or maybe a focus area. So that's just one example, but just think about how your users are getting their work done. What are they needing to do? And think about your hubs that way. Some other suggestions: be consistent. So if people are working across multiple hubs, they don't have to learn what hubs are all about. They don't have to try to guess, where am I at? So be consistent in the navigation structures and in how you set up your hubs. Let's go ahead, and another example of a hub here. I have an example of like an HR. I mean, every company has human resources and a lot of content that typically is relevant to many people. So another great example of using a hub where it's like a global HR hub, and then maybe you have a site for each of the area. So I have an example here of talent acquisition or benefits. So those can be separate sites, but yet connected as a hub. So with hubs, gone are the days of just disjointed and disconnected sites that it's hard to get from one site to the next. Really, with hubs, those navigation components really help things to seem connected with the search. That really does connect the sites. It also, I really think these last two bullet points are huge for those of us that have worked in SharePoint for a long time. Whenever there was a reorg, and you built a lot of people were so tempted at building site structures with lower level and deep level sites that represented like an org structure or a team structure. We don't need to do that anymore. We can build things very flat, but then use hubs to make those connections. And the nice thing is once you join a hub, you don't have to stay with a hub. So if you do have a restructure and you want to move things around, you can easily do that with hubs. So let me go ahead and, one last thing, because I'm going to do a demo and it's going to incorporate some design help. And so as I mentioned in one of the introductory slides is that with the new modern SharePoint, we've got templates, we've got easy branding, and we also have things like Microsoft's Lookbook that gives you lots of ideas on quickly developing nice looking content, nice looking sites. So I'm going to show some of those functionalities as I demo hub sites. So I just wanted to point that out. Let me switch to my demo browser. So a couple of different, before I switch, so I'm going to demo a few things. I'm going to demo creating that initial hub. I will also demo associating to a hub, but then some of the hub features such as shared navigation, shared coloring scheme, you're going to see when we configure those hub components, how that impacts the ones navigating or the ones subscribing to a hub. Okay, so now I'm switching. And here we are. So I'm going to go into the admin center. So admins are the ones to actually create to create an initial hub. So when we're in our SharePoint admin center, you'll be able to see some information here in this column called hub. You can see which of these sites is subscribed or part of a hub. So that information is there. Let me just go ahead and do some demos first of some hub sites. So I've got this global sales, which is a hub. And so some of the things visually to notice is that we've got this navigation along the top that becomes that shared hub navigation. Also notice some of the coloring schemes this site is using as well. So let me go ahead and I'm going to click on the sales and marketing site. If you can see here, I switched sites. This isn't a very visual appealing site, so nothing special about it, but the idea here is this is more of a collaboration space for the sales team or the sales and marketing team. And so we can see here, if you were looking at the URL is a separate site. You can see sales and marketing, whereas before it was, I don't remember let me go back. Oh, the first one was global sales. So you can see I am completely switching to a different site. And then what you can also see is the color. So it feels like I'm really still part of the global sales because I've got this easy navigation back. And I can move around. It looks like I'm still within that same space as far as the fonts and color schemes. So that's some of the basics here. If we also have local navigation that's still capable, that doesn't get impacted by the hub navigation, so you can still have that local existence that is specific to each of the subscribing sites. Okay, so with that, let me just do a couple of demos. So now I want to demonstrate that HR. I've got an HR site that was built, and I am going to go there. Actually, I already have it open. So right now, this is a very basic site. There hasn't been much that's been done. And so before I'm going to go ahead and make it the hub. And so I'm going to go back in here. I find the HR site. I select it. Oops, I've got two selected. So let me start over. I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to say hub, register as a hub site. It's you can do some additional things if you really want to limit who can if you don't want any old site or any old site admin to be able to register their site to this hub, you can specify and adding in user accounts or group accounts there that would limit that interaction. I won't do that. I'll just go ahead and click save. I'll just go ahead and keep the default here, the hub name based on the site name. So I'm going to hit save. Takes a few seconds, as you saw how quickly that was. And so now this is a hub site. It's not going to look any different at this point. But now if I have another site that wants to subscribe to this, I can do that. So I'm going to go to this HR leadership team, or here we go. I'll just choose any one of these. I'll choose this HR onboarding. So I'm going to visit that site. And I am going to subscribe as soon as this gives me the right icon. There, just took a second to catch up with me. So I'm going to go into the site information, and I'm going to go ahead and say I want to become part of the Human Resources Hub, and say save. So with that, it is now taking on, and you can see the global nav. The global nav right now is pretty minimal, but you can see this new navigation component would allow me to go to that HR Human Resources site. Okay. So additionally, as I mentioned, I want to also show some of the quick things you can do when wanting to brand. So I just left this the way it was, but I'm going to go ahead now and go into change the look. If you haven't played with change the look, take the time to do so. I'm just going to show changing of a theme. So I'm going to make this very noticeably different. So I'm going to choose something like purple, because I'm not using purple anywhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Notice you can have company themes. I'm not going to take the time to actually show you how to create that. There's great, easy to use articles on Microsoft's learning site on how to create your own themes. But you can have your own themes with all of the branded logo colors that you would want to really represent your company. These are the out-of-the-box SharePoint themes. So I'm going to choose that purple and click Save. Additionally, like I mentioned, I won't spend the time, but you can change more than just theme. You can have a very, different amounts of options for your headers, for your, we will talk a little bit more about navigation, and then footer. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I am now going to go back over to my sales and marketing site and refresh it since that change happened. And I guess I'm probably not showing anything purple. Let me, well, I bombed there. I don't know why that's not pulling through. It might just have to be a refresh thing. So we'll come back to that later, but I will show you here, going back to the sales and marketing again, that blue and red kind of comes up wherever I go. I'm going into yet another site, and so those colors do flow through. Okay. Let me go back, make sure I demo.
There's a couple
everything.
Questions out here. I don't know if.
Oh, is there? I forgot to have my chat open. Good.
So Catherine Scott asked, will you also demo how to attach a hub site to another hub site and what that navigation experience looks like?
Okay.
Or if there are links to any helpful resources.
Perfect. Thank you for pointing out. I had hidden the chat.
And then Katie asks, do you need to be an admin to create a custom color palette?
Okay, some good questions. So I'll start with the last, the admin to be able to create the color palettes. You would need to have access to the SharePoint Admin Center. So that does require global admin access. Then the other question, how to attach a hub site to another hub site. I think I demoed that unless you're talking, you can't have separate hubs like attached. I guess what I'd recommend there, if you wanted, for instance, the sales, so I demonstrated creating an HR hub and a sales hub. Let's say we had, I'm going to scrap the one I demoed. Let's say I had a sales hub and I had a marketing hub, and those teams had reason to work together. You could, what I would say, you can't really connect the two hubs together through anything that it offers except in your navigation. So what I would say from there is you would edit the navigation of the hub. And so let me refresh this. Where am I? Oh, I need to go up to the hub. So at the hub level, you can see, since I'm the admin, I can edit the navigation. So what I'm doing here is editing the hub navigation. You can even see it spelled out here. So what I would recommend is linking hubs together manually through your navigation structures. So that is the way I'm thinking quickly by trying to answer your question, that you could combine hubs, but that's just a manual linkage. But it would allow all of those links to be seen on all of the subscribers, the subscriber sites then. So I hope that answered your question. Who that was Scott, I hope, or Catherine. Hopefully that answered your question. And then some helpful resources. At the end of the meeting, I'll throw some links into the chat on some helpful resources on these topics. So I have them embedded, but I don't want to take the time right now. Do you have any success stories about using hubs of hubs, or is it better to designate an intranet landing, for example, as a home site? Yeah, if I'm understanding that question, I have seen success where there's a main communication hub that a company will use as that main. You really should have a kind of a main defined home site that's your intranet home. You know, that's typically what I've seen be successful, is that's tied to your communication plan. So that's where people go to get news and get the key links, so that the main hub's navigation links really gives that high level but vast amount of sites that most people would need to get to. And then from there, maybe more departmental level hubs, because again, going back to that recommendation, think about how your users work. You know, I think it's successful when people when they open up their browser for the first time, they see the main hub where the communication is, but then 9 times out of 10, they're going to be going to the sites that they work in to get their job done. So that's where the hubs then, the secondary hubs can, and maybe those are linked from those secondary hubs can be linked from the main home, intranet site, so to speak. So I hope that answers your question, Brady. Thank you for asking it. Okay, perfect. Well, let me, those are great questions. Let me move back to my, my deck and move into Viva Connections, keep things moving here. So what I want to talk about here with Viva Connections is, there's actually, as you saw Don mention, there's some improvements coming later the next month. But just to introduce Viva Connections, what Viva Connections is really like, a lot of the Viva, if you've seen Viva as a platform, it really is one of many tools that is focused on employee engagement. And so what Viva Connections specifically, I won't go into all of the Viva components because we'd have to probably spend another couple of hours, but I would like to specifically talk about Viva Connections because it really helps with your intranet. It brings the content and the sites of your intranet into Teams. And so how it does that, and it actually has evolved very quickly over the last couple of months from how it was introduced just probably a year or 18 months ago. If you've been seeing Viva Connections over the last year, the first iteration of Viva Connections was very focused on bringing in your intranet home site. So that question I was just asked, where I talked about having an intranet home site, if you're going to use Viva Connections, you really have to define in your admin center which of your sites within your ecosystem is the home site. And that becomes part of that connecting point within Teams. What you see in this screenshot is the evolution of Viva Connections. Now the default look and feel is more focused on this dashboard. And this dashboard I'll talk about in a moment. It's a bunch of tiles that you can configure. And when Don was presenting the coming changes, and he mentioned that that dashboard can be personalized as well. So anyway, you also, one of the big selling points that I've had people ask me is, how do we get our intranet into Teams? Because people are starting to use Teams where they start their day and live in Teams so much. And so this is that aspect is you can come in here, and these tiles are likely little snippets of content or functionality that's in your intranet. So I have some screenshots here, like open enrollment is now open. That is likely going to launch you into either an open enrollment tool that might be a third-party tool, or maybe take you to a SharePoint page where it describes all of the ins and outs of open enrollment. So again, that's just one example, but also here in the top right-hand corner of Viva Connections is the link to your intranets. Now, for those of you who have been around Viva Connections for, like I said, the last year, it used to be that's where you would start. It would start on your intranet homepage. If you prefer that experience, there is an article written where you can still have that be the default functionality. But I'm focusing on showing the way it is by default, and that's where your dashboard is front and center. Likewise, you get this feed. I'll talk a little bit more about the feed. I got a whole slide on it, so I just wanted to point it out where you would see it. Also, if your users are using mobile experience with a Teams app, this does also have an experience that is very user-friendly in a mobile device. Okay, so first I want to talk about the dashboard. I already highlighted a little bit of that dashboard. You can see, I wanted to showcase that in a mobile device. Here's what the dashboard looks like on a mobile device as well. And so I'll demonstrate the dashboard here in a moment, but that dashboard allows you to configure different cards, which it gives you those little snippets. And so out of the box, you're able to, these are some of the examples of cards. And one of the things, check back often, because there's new types of cards that can be released frequently. But these are the common ones. You can enable approvals through a card. So if you are using like a Power Automate approval system, or some type of an approval on whether it be on a documents library, a form-based, you can have that approvals tab button right in a card. Tasks, Card Designer gives you the flexibility with a low-code, no-code kind of tool set to be able to create something that maybe snaps into a third-party app. Create some kind of a custom experience that meets a business use case that you have. Shifts, app cards like you would see on the left of Teams, third-party cards, news, and I'll show you some of that, and then links. And so it really allows you to create that dashboard experience to be able to do different functionality. Okay. The feed, I think the feed is one of the more things that the dashboard definitely serves a purpose. You see it, you're able to link and get to stuff. The feed, I think, for communicators is very exciting, because I know there's so many different ways to communicate. There's email, there's chat, there's web pages, and there's social media like Yammer, and the feed brings all of those ways together. And so it surfaces the content, news content, special boosted content, Yammer content, right within a single source. And I showed you that feed is off to the right. You also can use a Viva Connections feed on any SharePoint page. So it doesn't just limit you to only using the feed in Teams. You can really make use of that functionality, that feature set elsewhere. So let me go ahead. I think I am ready to do a demo. This is just kind of giving you some visuals on the feed. But let me, and I'll also demonstrate the boost. So if you have a news article, you want to be almost like the same concept of tagging or pinning, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Boost allows you to take a page, a news page, and be able to say, boost this, so that, because a lot of the feed is kind of artificial intelligence is processing what it should show you. Boost kind of gives communicators with the right permissions the ability to say, this is going to be seen by everyone for a certain number of days. Boost until May 20th. And then that will show up kind of as a top news story for however much time. So that's pretty powerful. Okay. I don't know why it's not advancing. Oh, I didn't talk about the resources. I'll come back to that. I'm going to go ahead and switch to demoing. I think I've talked enough and appreciate a good demo. So I'm going to switch. Actually, I've got a different browser I want to show you. Here it is. So here I am in Teams. And look at the left-hand notification. Like a lot of you are familiar with looking at Teams this way. You're looking at your Teams, you're looking at your chat, and any other apps that you've pinned to your left-hand Teams window. Now there is, when you enable Viva Connections, you will get the ability to add an icon and it's customizable what you call. It's not going to say Viva Connections. You are able, I mean, you could if you wanted to, but really what you're able to do is take and name it whatever your intranet is named. Would be what I'd recommend and what you will likely see out in various how-to articles. And the concept there, the reason for that, is because you want people to associate that with your intranet. So if you've branded your intranet, so in this demo environment, it's been branded the landing. That's just the fictitious name of this Contoso's intranet. So you can see that custom, and so you click on that, and like I said, you see your dashboard right out of the gate. If I wanted to, I could click on the landing here, and then it really brings the intranet into Teams. So I've had people ask me, why would you do this? Why would you want people in Teams interacting with your intranet? They can still use a browser. Well, for sure they can. They can still use a browser, and if that's the way your users interact with your intranet, there's nothing preventing them from doing that. This just gives you the option to make that intranet more visible, like I said, in the tool that many employees are likely using throughout their day. So that's, all part of that experience. So I'm going to go back to here because I want to talk about the dashboard a little bit more. Oops, let me refresh since I navigated away. And I'm just using Teams in a browser because of its demo environment, but in reality, this would be in my Teams app. So you can see a few things here. They're also linking other Viva type apps. And like I said, I'm not going to go into these, but Viva Learning, Viva Insights, Viva Engage. I will mention Viva Engage because that's, if you haven't heard yet, Yammer is now linked into Teams through Viva Engage. So I usually, if people who've used Yammer a lot, Viva Engage is kind of the facelift of using Yammer within Teams. So that's what Engage is here. Okay, so some of these, I'm going to go ahead and you can edit if you have the right permissions. You can edit the dashboard right through this interface. You saw me click edit, and you can move these around. You can add new ones. And so I just want to quickly add a new one just so you can see. I mentioned a few of these: approvals, shifts, card designer. There's some good articles out there on card designer. If you've never, it's adaptive cards. Maybe you've heard that. It's been around a while. It's the same technology you can use in Teams to have an adaptive card. So anyway, a lot of different options. So I'll just do a simple web link. So if I choose web link, I can then edit it. It's like editing a web part for those of you who've done a lot in SharePoint before. So this just allows me to add a link. So I could put in here, you know, something. I'll just put in Bing. Oops. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in, I'll just go. I'm going to do a little self-promotion. So I'll just go to our website, grab that link it in here, and then put RBA Consulting. And most of the other things, like an auto select an image or customize, typical kind of things you can do there. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that and hit republish. So now that card becomes part of the overall, where'd it go? Maybe I forgot to hit save. But anyways, I don't know why it's not showing there. Let me hit refresh. Maybe it's just a refresh. I likely forgot to hit save or something, but that's how easy it is to interact with adding cards and moving them around. Now, this top news, I want to point that out. That is another card, so that's going to bring in top news right into your dashboard. But really, like I said, this feed is what really brings in news very visually and allows you to have that. And if you were on an app on your phone, you would see the boosted news, the top news, all very interactive on a mobile device as well, not just on a computer screen. The other thing let me just make sure there's no questions about Viva Connections. I see some things still going on about hubs. Okay, it looks like people are helping answer on hubs, so perfect. Thank you all. So another thing I skipped over and I'm going to go back to is the resources. So along with Viva Connections, the components that I've shown, when you click into Viva Connections in Microsoft Teams, you also get this resources section, which allow you to set up, oops, I didn't mean to hit the arrow, allow you to display both in a desktop environment and a mobile environment, the navigation. And this really allows you to set up yet another layer of navigation. I talked about hub navigation, but now we've got navigation with Viva Connections that when enabled, when somebody is interacting in Teams, they can click on, the first time you click on the icon for Viva Connections, which again is customized, it brings up this. But when you click on it again, you get this, all of these components are navigation components that are configured and will travel with a user throughout SharePoint and throughout Teams. And this is true on a mobile device and a desktop. So let me not only show you here, but let me go back over to the landing, which again is in my browser. I'm using SharePoint. When you click on this home, notice the consistency. That's the same navigation, which we call resources, that you saw in Viva Connections. So that brings about yet another way to have, and it doesn't have to be just navigation of SharePoint. You could have like a benefits. Maybe this health and fitness takes you to a completely, you know, an app that your HR team is using to track health and fitness that has nothing to do with SharePoint. So these are just links, very powerful with your modern intranet to be able to have that navigation element that can be fully customized and travel across Teams, travel across SharePoint, travel across your mobile devices. So that's pretty powerful. Along with that, you can see, although it's not showing, oops. Oh, that was a link, I guess. Okay. I think I want to keep moving. I've got a little bit more. There is quite a bit of this next. I'm not going to talk through this, but there is a number of steps when you need to roll out Viva, or when you want to configure and roll out Viva Connections. There is a good article, and like I said, at the end, I'll link some of these links but you really have a number of things to do, but this is not a difficult thing. It's just you need to have some planning around having your modern intranet home site ready to launch and ready to go, because it becomes the center aspect of your Viva connection. So I would say that would be the first thing. If you're going to get your house in order, that's the first room to work on, is getting your intranet home site ready to go. And then there's some steps on designating that, and then configuring the app within Teams, along with your dashboard and your navigational components, and getting all of those set up, and then making that app available. When you're ready, it's as easy as going into your Teams admin center, adding the app, and rolling it out for everyone. And then the next time they log in the next day, they'll have that app pinned on their more than likely pinned. You don't have to choose to pin it, but typically I've seen customers want to pin that and make it very visible for their users. Okay. Last, I've talked about most of these navigational components, so I'm going to skip on. Actually, I talked through them. Really what I want to hit with just, hopefully I can go a couple minutes over, because I want to hit on this. One of the most exciting things, back to kind of the intranet, the Viva Connections was a big part that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't want to skimp here. Really what is so powerful is now all the ways we can surface content. You can have news stories. You can have key content like policy documents, how-to documents, training and templates and resources throughout your intranet. You don't have to have them all in the same site. And you can use modern search-based web parts to surface content no matter where that content lives. So you don't have to have multiple multiple versions of documents sitting in different sites to make them easy to find. You really are able to use news web parts, site web parts, content web parts, event web parts to surface that, again, with a single source of truth, no matter where it sits. So I want to say that very clear, because really making this work isn't that hard, but understanding that content, that concept, really gives you an advantage, because then later on when you're going to implement some of this, you can come back and say, okay, yep, I remembered I don't have to have 15 versions of the same thing in different sites. So I'll demo with the news, and then the concepts are so much the same, whether it's news, whether it's events, whether it's content like document content, video content. These web parts are very universal. So let me go ahead and demonstrate surfacing news content throughout a site collection, and I'll leave it with that demo and pass it on. So let me switch back. It's already, oops, oh, what happened there? Let me go back. Here we go. We can already actually see the web part working right here. But let me go ahead and edit and show you how this is actually working. So when I'm going to go to the bottom and just add a new web part so you can see it from the ground up. So I'm just going to add a web part, and it's the news web part. But if you actually, the highlighted content one is another one, but the news one, some of the things you can do, and this is the key here, is to select the news source. So if you can say the site you're in. So if you really have a very limited view, you only want to show your local news, you surely can do that. Or you can say selected sites and choose. You can also, if this was on a hub, you could also choose like all sites within the hub. So you'll see the different options based on where you're interacting with this site. You can change the look and feel, and it's easy to play with that. You can see it right away when you click on the different options. You can make it very list-based, side-by-side, top story. You can specify some other settings here as well. The other powerful thing you can do is filter. Now, I'll give you some use cases where I've used this a lot. I create I'll end with this. I had a client that wanted to have the ability to have like employee highlights where they showed like new employees and retirements and different types of an employee news, anniversaries, advancements through a new job post, new job. They wanted to have that news very separate from like, industry news. So we tagged, how we did that was we put a tag using metadata for the type of news it was. And then we came in and used the news web part. And maybe I said, this would be like employee news or employee announcements. And then I just used the filters to say a page property. And then I chose the piece of metadata. I don't have that set up here, but I chose the page property that I had set up where the metadata was equal to employee announcement. So there's so much power with these web parts. There's filters, there's look and feel elements, there's what you want to target. And this is also true of, like I said, the highlighted content is more focused on like videos and documents, not so much news. So you can use that to really showcase lots of content filtered by whatever imagination you have and whatever use cases you have. Okay, I'm running out of time, so let me just wrap up. This was just more of the events I mentioned, same thing. Sites, you can highlight sites, and then the demo I just did. So to wrap things up, I hope you've seen that with some of these new modern features, there's better ways to communicate and make communication a big part of a successful modern intranet content. And also just having strong governance and search and mobility. You really want your modern intranet to make use of a lot of these features that you saw demoed today. And then last, the other thing I'll end with is modern intranets are better together. You don't have to just think of a modern intranet as being SharePoint alone. You can see that you really have a whole ecosystem of tools across M365 that work together, better together, to build your successful intranet. And if you still don't know how to get started, please reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very plugged into this community, so I'd be more than happy to talk over any of this with you. So thank you so much for the time today. And I don't know if I have to spin it back to Michelle or Don, but thank you.